So I'm speaking with one of my favorite composers, Mr. Heitor Pereira. Heitor has composed amazing scores like Ask the Dust with Ramin Djawadi and Running the Sahara, Haven, Riding in Cars with Boys with Hans Zimmer, and It's Complicated also with Hans. This summer he has two big sequels coming out as he continues his work in these franchises with Despicable Me 2 and The Smurfs 2. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Heitor. It's great to chat again.
Pleasure all mine.
So we spoke really extensively about your background and history in our last interview. So I guess let's dive right into Despicable Me 2. Was it surprising how big of a hit the original film was? You know, coming from a new production company and a new franchise, a new idea. You know, in today's industry, it's hard for original ideas to really take off.
hmm Well, I tell you one thing. In the first one, I was so involved and making sure that you know that we found like a voice for the movie, for the characters. You know, making sure that Pharrell, as a collaborator, was happy and relaxed to give as much as he could
Hmm.
from his musicianship. Um, so, quite frankly, I never considered, oh, this is going to be a hit or not, because my hands full. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes. Uh huh.
Okay, so I had my hands full, and I tell you, when I realized that uh, something was much bigger than I thought, was after the success of the first movie. Then I was asked to do the ride at Universal
Oh
in
yeah.
Orlando,
Hmm.
and as we were there, it took me a while to write and everything. It's written for a specific like 7.1 system.
Hmm.
I had a lot of fun, and now there we are, like mixing the thing and playing, in the site where the thing will take place, and every minute somebody would come and say, when is it going to open? When is it going to open up? When is it going to open up? And I thought like, oh my God, it's been a year since the movie came out,
Yeah.
and people still have that, like, the energy attached to it. So at first, no, I didn't, but then with time, I realized, wow, this is something very, very dear to a lot of people.
And it's I mean it speaks for itself. The work, the movie, the music, it's all fantastic. It has a lot of heart, and the characters are so great. And in both films you collaborated musically with Pharrell Williams. How did
Yes.
that pairing initially happen? How did you two meet, or did somebody introduce you to each other?
We were introduced to each other by Hans.
Oh, okay.
Hans, I think, at first he was the producer, music producer
Hmm.
of the first one, and they had somebody else working with Pharrell, um, and I think after a while, uh, maybe the direction that they were taking wasn't pleasing very much, people, and I think that's when Pharrell was introduced to me by Hans, and Pharrell asked me to do an arrangement of one of his songs,
Hmm.
and so I chose the girls theme, and I start thinking, wow, but this could be like, instead of a 3/4 thing, we can do a 4/4 thing here. Over there, instead of being like a major melody, we can make a minor melody. And so I did the suite of the theme of the song that he wrote for the girls,
Hmm.
and he says, oh man, this is the kind of stuff that should be in the movie. I said, well, let's see how it goes. I was busy at the time. They waited for me to finish. I think I was doing like a Madagascar work,
Uh-huh.
and then I finished that, and I got into working with him. He came to my studio for 3 weeks. We put a lot of material together. We co-wrote the groove, melody, and then he left, and I still had to take care of the Minions melody, the Vector melody, which was the first villain,
Yeah.
and it kept going. But that's how it came through a common friend, you know.
Yeah, it's really cool, and you guys really, I think, really melded well together. Did
I
your
love him. He's a beautiful musician.
he's really great. And did your collaborative process change at all from the first film to this one, or did you kind of stay in the same vein?
No, this one it changed because the story, in a way, changed too, and I think it's it's just life, right? Like at the time we had to in the first movie we had 3 weeks to
Hmm.
give. He had 3 weeks to give. This one, it was more like me using making sure that what we did in the first one together, you know, what spilled over the second one.
Hmm.
So we had a sound.
Right.
But then, even just the emotions of the characters from the first one, be the girls, or most importantly, Gru, you know, they were completely different from one movie to the next.
Hmm.
So I had the themes, so I start writing these new renditions, these new faces per se of the themes, and then I had all the new characters to write to, and and it was a very very meticulous job between myself and the filmmakers that were very participative, in the music. This this time, for, we weren't as Pharrell wasn't as present in the score making as in the first one.
Right.
But I've made sure that that everything that I could draw from the first one, yes, and that the songs of the second one, the way we incorporated the songs in the score and everything, brought to the second movie the same kind of pop and a feel, the same kind of like a friendly approach from the music,
Hmm.
like the first ones, the first songs that Pharrell did, brought to the first movie. So he wasn't there as much, but I made sure that he wasn't forgotten,
Right.
basically.
And this is you're not this is not a new territory for you. Animated films, children's, Beverly Hills Chihuahua and Curious George. You've done such amazing work in the genre. Does What's the key to scoring an animated film aimed at a younger crowd? Does knowing that your audience kind of will skew younger, does that affect your approach musically at all? Are you trying to put yourself in their mindset? Or are you just kind of scoring as you feel the film?
I think this films and in particular Despicable Me. It's such a it's like a family that it's not your everyday family,
Hmm.
but it still carries all the love that you expect, you know, from those situations, those relationships.
Right.
I let that take care of it. Um, so it's almost like the characters and the stories, little by little, start singing to me what are those melodies and
Uh-huh.
how they should be treated. So I, I, I do keep in mind who we are making it to because I go to the screenings, and in the screenings, sometimes 3 months before the release of the movie, we play for families, for kids and parents, and I pay close attention to the way they react
Mm.
to certain scenes, and I try to put myself in their position when I'm writing new material because ultimately it's entertainment and I want to give that to them. We are providing something that when dad, mom, and the kids go to that movie, it's worth the trip.
Right. Right.
So I don't take it that for granted at all, man. It's like we want to make sure as much as we can that um, those will be 2 hours, of quality in the
Hmm.
sense that when they leave the room, right, when they leave the movie theater, they still can talk about and those sentiments stay for a while, and because they are like humane and human sentiments, emotions, I think those are good to take home. So
Absolutely.
that's my responsibility, I find.
That's I agree with that. That's really cool. You're also scoring the Smurfs 2 this summer, another sequel to a hugely successful first film that really became kind of an international success. This one is also a family comedy with animation, more live action too. But how does the tone and approach for Smurfs differ from Despicable Me? Is it challenging to make films kind of in a similar tone, have a unique sonic identity? Does that challenge you as a composer?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, I tell you one thing. Um, on top of the stories being like very different and the origin per
Mm-hmm.
se of characters be from someplace completely different, you know, from different times, different parts of the world, or imaginary parts of the world. So, um, I find it that um, the same way, man. I want to, you know, treat these characters as they were real.
Right.
I allow, I look for music that maybe relates, that is made by humans. So then that music can apply to characters. For example, um, for Despicable Me, Lucy, the partner of Gru, is now in their new spy endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, you know, she's so, you know, like perfect in what she does, that I thought like a tango would be perfect for her.
Uh-huh.
So I'm guaranteeing that I have like a well to drink from,
Uh-huh.
you know, a
Yeah,
fountain
yeah.
to drink from, and in doing that, you know, not only I'm giving the movie a chance to, not necessarily that what you would expect from uh, family movies, kind of scores, you know. So I'm giving a chance to myself and to the movie to sound a little different, but I'm also giving a chance to the musician in me to learn more about that particular style and what it can become and how can we transform, you know, how can the minions make, you know, a, a tango sound a little different,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and so I really dig that, man, and I find it that for the Smurfs is the same thing, you know. Let's say it would be something like Irish, you know, jigs and airs, kind of influenced, you know, that particular theme, but I made sure that the harmonies that I use have nothing to do with traditional Celtic music.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Gargamel, you know, I went there and made an effort. And I say every percussion that I play from Gargamel will come from the guitar strings after the nut. You know, so you strum, you know, and it sounds kind of like that,
Uh-huh.
and then I bring octaves loud down to make like a kick drum from this. I do some other treatment to it so it can sound like, you know, a snare, and then, for example, a waterphone, instruments that generally is used for spooky things. And I said, no, let's have fun with the waterphone if we put always up together with bassoon, you know.
Yeah.
So the percolating bassoon line and the waterphone, you know, just creating like pads per se. So that's the inspiration and to me to eventually create music, hopefully that, you know, makes those worlds of Despicable Me and the Smurfs sound like way apart.
Right. So it's just a lot of experimentation with sounds and playing together and seeing what works and what melds.
Yeah, you know, I have like this big room, and you know, where I have like 100 something guitars, you know, but guitars in the sense of like, you know, some string instruments from Morocco, from Senegal, from Brazil, from China, from Mars, from Jupiter, you know, and many percussion instruments. And then I do go to Home Depot and to other places, and I sample things, and I try to make, you know, maybe a little welding tool to become like my
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
so to have fun with the world of sounds, you know, and that's the fun of it.
It's just, yeah, a lot of sound design also making it into music. I love that whole approach to it.
Yeah, you know, for example, Gargamel's Smurf later, all the sounds come actually from the group, the engineers that were responsible for sound effects in the movie.
Wow.
So early on in the first movie, when I heard like some sounds like smoking engines, you know, like,
Hmm.
I said, man, why I'm gonna fight with this? You know, in the sense of like it's such a imposing sound, you know,
Right.
and lasts quite long. So I asked for a meeting with them, and I said, do you mind if in certain cues, you know, you see this Smurf later, but we add, you know, a certain pattern, a certain rhythm, you know, to it, and they said, yeah. So can you send me all your data, you know, all the sounds that you have, and let me create with those sounds my drum kit, and became more than drum kit because then I found some smoke, you know, pipes that you know I could harmonize with them, that I could do different things. So that's the way of bringing sound design, sound effects into the world of music, and that's why I love animation in general. It's because it allows you to be so much more colorful with sounds. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah. And so since you scored both the first Smurfs and the first Despicable Me, did you get the luxury of more time this time around? Did you get to start working early versus, waiting for a first cut, or do you like to work, early on in the process, or when did you come in for Despicable Me?
No, you're right. I came in very early, you know, because they both sent me the scripts very early on.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you know, sometimes, you know, well, I know for sure, in both of them, you know, very early on in the scripts, I start hearing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a tape recorder as I was reading, you know, and I start like just humming melodies and
Oh wow.
describing what that could be, you know, tum 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 tum, ting 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 tum 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 tum. Boom, boom. That's Gargamel, and I'm reading. Gargamel appears from behind the smoke, and tum, 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 tum.
That's really interesting.
So you know, it's like I'm having fun. It's
Yeah.
already animated. For me, it's already animated.
So you take your recordings and does it really? I mean, have you ever take a actual humming that you've done and it's actually become the final theme?
Let me see. Uh, Not that, but for example, uh, no, actually, maybe like you know, to complete this mufflator sound,
Hmm.
I did do, you know, just because it's a different way of doing it, and but not necessarily when I was reading the thing. But I made a lot of sounds. Um, for example, the Smurfs to demonstrate like camaraderie.
Hmm.
You know, I have a lot of times in a lot of cues, people whistling the melodies together. You know, because I think it's such a basic. You know, it's like singing. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, well, why not whistle? Because then it's something that we are together in this, and let's have fun. So that I did a lot myself, you know, and maybe because I already had in the first one, the first month done that, I bet that, you know, as I was reading, you know, there are recordings of me going, you know, just imagining different ways of already be treating the music because of what I'm reading, you know.
Oh, that's crazy. That's so awesome. I love that.
It's a good profession, man.
But it's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that, they record themselves listening to the script. I think that's so unique. That's really cool.
First
Um,
impressions, Kaya, you know, and also because you're by yourself. So then, you know, so I received the script in the mail,
Right.
and I go sit down, and there I am by myself, and so it's an opportunity that that moment will never come back.
Mhm.
After that, I'm gonna call the director and say, man, I love the script. I like this. Wow, what about this?
Mhm.
And then it becomes everybody else's music, which is another thing that I love about film music.
Mhm.
But for myself, I find that it's almost like when you are reading the script. The script is almost when you are like by yourself playing like a little tune that you love in your instrument, at home.
Right.
It's like a very intimate
Yeah, yeah.
moment.
So to taking all this information, and we talk a lot about the sequels and the movies that you worked on. So to wrap up, let me ask you, since we've been discussing sequels, is it more challenging to come up with a new original idea or to build upon existing work that you've done before?
Um, I think the challenge it really is to look to accept that this is a story
Mm-hmm.
that stopped at to be continued.
Right.
you know, so you cannot with music change that last phrase and the three little dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have to pick it up from where you've left. The filmmakers are doing that, so
Mm-hmm.
the music shouldn't be different. So there are certain like common factors, in the
Yeah, yeah.
storytelling, in the animation itself, as you see, how Gru looks like. That he still looks like that way. His nose didn't shrink.
Mm-hmm.
He still has a big nose. So the same thing has to be with the music, but there are many new characters, and many new emotions to the old characters. So if you are true to that, I think it's always a great ride, and everything will be new, as long as the first note you write, is the note before the last note of the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
In a way. If it's just that continuation, that arc that hasn't finished yet, it hasn't completed itself, and that's what I love about it. So I swear to God, I had no problems, in both of them. Sometimes I would push things, and I would be reminded by my collaborators, by the directors and the producers said, hey, man, give me a little bit more of that first one.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, come on, totally. But never was like, oh, I can't take that melody anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm really, I tell you one thing, I'm always very thankful to the melodies that come to me. To me, those a melody, it's like music as an entity telling me, hey, we still can work together here. So I take that as a handshake. I say, okay, great, you're giving me this melody, let me orchestrate it for you. And by the way, this little motif that you gave me can become so many others. So I think in the end is this. It's like these movies also help me to continue loving music.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
And
that's
so it's fun, man. It's fun. They are instruments of making me a better musician, of discovering things that I never knew I could do, or discovering things that I shouldn't do again.
well, it's
But I
all
keep trying.
yeah. You gotta keep at it. No, but it's and that hearing you say all that, it speaks through your music as well. I mean, I've been listening to you since you started, so I've listened to you. I think grow as a musician, and I love your music, and it's always a joy to listen to you. So.
It's a pleasure, Kai. It's like I tell you, man. I've been studying this summer. Now that these movies are done, I'm learning new softwares. I'm learning new harmonizations, new orchestration ideas. You think, man, it's every day. It's a new scene in my own movie. So I want to write that music good too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it's fun, man, and I can't wait for the next one.
I'm sure after this weekend's numbers, you'll be getting a phone call for Despicable 3, you know?
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. It's a world that I love, diving into it. Big
Well,
thing.
Heitor, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and we'll definitely do this again sometime soon.
Okay, Kai. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity for me to talk a little bit about what I love and about these movies that deserve, some space over there, man.